Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
We're applauding for ourselves and everybody outside the studio.
You know, there are a lot, full disclosure, there's probably like 50 people out there. They're just not looking at us right now.
Yeah, they're not looking at applauding. Yeah. Here we are back on the mothership.
We love it.
Back on KOMO TV4, as we used to call it back in the day.
And people outside Seattle, like, they'll be like, oh, we have Niko from KOMO. I'm like, we're KOMO.
Yeah. KOMO News, KOMO TV4, working for you, all that stuff.
Yes.
Back in the day, but we are working here. Episode 21.
We can legally have a drink.
Yes. We're at 21, right? Did I lose count?
No, we're 21, and we got to... Well, there's no drinks in here. We can't celebrate. Maybe later, Chris.
Yes. It has been a busy week.
Yes.
Busy last week.
Yes.
We're going to talk a lot about the World Cup today. The Club World Cup and the World Cup, two different events now slated for Seattle in 2025 and 2026. There was a visit, as you know, you and I were both there, from somebody who could be considered the president of the world. It wasn't just a dignitary, that's the head of state. As somebody from the Sounders said, it's like the president of the world is visiting Renton, and we're talking about Gianni Infantino. He was in Seattle for a whistle-stop tour to also make a big announcement. You'll hear from him a bit later. And we're going to do something a little bit different this week on Inside the Arena. We cover things off the field, off the court, off the ice. And there was some big news, I think, for a lot of us that work in this industry.
Yeah.
Away from the mic, as we learned about the passing of Tony Ventrella. I don't know, Niko, if you had a chance to interact with Tony over the years. I did as well. He completed the cycle in local TV news. He worked at KOMO, he worked at King, he worked at Cairo, he worked at KCPQ, also the Seahawks and Sounders. And a little known fact, he ran for Congress against Dave Reichert at a time when he was just trying to really bring positivity to politics.
Right.
He was such a positive person. As we have seen people talking about his life over the last few days, it has been about how positive Tony Ventrella was and what he brought to television, what he brought to the Seahawks, the Sounders. That's why he ran for office. I had a chance to work side by side with him at KCPQ back in the day when he was working as a news anchor. But I think a lot of people remember him from his time specifically at King when we saw in this market sportscasters, no offense, like no other in Bruce King, Wayne Cody, and Tony Ventrella, and I think Rod Simons as well, who's a mentor of mine. But Tony, you saw it in his sportscasts at King. I think there's been some fun old promos that have been kicked around from the 80s. He was all about bringing the fun. He had the wrestling hold of the week in his sportscasts. He talked about the funny names. He had an all-name team. I mean, there were these little bits that he did that seemed like it'd be great if they were in sportscasts nowadays. But at that time, in the 80s, I mean, these guys were kings. And there was no ESPN, and that's who you tuned to for your local sports, and Tony was definitely a king. You know,
and you talk about bringing the positivity. Most of my interaction with Tony would be he would send me a random text or email or Facebook message and be like, hey, I saw what you did. And you knew it wasn't generic. Like, he would, whatever specific thing he watched that night, be like, oh my God, I thought that was great. And he'd go really in specific. And when you hear that from Tony, man, that makes your day.
Yeah.
Like, and especially when he would do it when I first started. It's like, okay, I'm doing some great things in Seattle. That's my dream. Like, and it was Tony who kind of cemented that for him. We used to go to the same trading card shop that we had on the show a few months back in Renton and DJ Sports Cards. It's so sad. And I think that I will actually share a bit of a story here that's actually kind of been eating at me a little bit since he passed. Joe Wren, who's a longtime editor here, he asked when the last time I spoke to Tony was, and I said, outside of some Facebook likes and things like that, probably August. He went to training camp with his grandson, and Tony walked in. He was like a rock star. Everybody's like hugging him and everything. But that was probably the last time we spoke person to person. And I asked Joe why. He's like, oh, well, on October 9th, he texted me, and asked if Niko was working today. And Joe told Tony yes. And then Tony just said, okay, thanks. But I never knew what it was. We didn't interact after that. And it wasn't until I talked to another sports colleague in town who was very close to Tony and Chris. You know, Chris. He actually was like, yeah, he wanted to tell you how great of a job you did on some. I forget what the specific was, and so did he. But just knowing that was going to be the last time we talked, it's kind of a beautiful memory.
Yeah.
Even if for the whole day I was like, oh gosh, like what did he want to tell me? But yeah, and that's a cool last memory to take, is that the last time somebody was going to reach out to you just a couple weeks before they passed, maybe less, was to tell you they really approved of what you were doing. And from Tony, I mean, that's an awesome and fantastic last memory to take.
And there are some similarities with you and him. I mean, you bring the positivity to your sportscast all the time, and I say that objectively and as a friend. Tony was not a guy who would just do some sort of op-ed, negative op-ed, just to make waves or make social media headlines. He was a guy who was self-deprecating, fun, and really brought the fun to his sportscasts, and they were different. I mean, you go back and look at YouTube, or you go back and look at clips that have been circulating here over the last few days, and you'll see Tony Ventrella was a different cat, and I think that most people would tell you that every interaction they had with him was positive. And like I said, the fact that he ran for Congress when he didn't even really campaign, he just kind of submitted his name and then said he was pulling out, and then he ended up making it through the primary, and here he is like running against Dave Reichert. It's he definitely made his mark in Seattle, and he passed away at the age of 80 over the last weekend from a long battle with cancer. So
we're gonna miss him.
We're gonna miss Tony Ventrella in our community. It's a hard transition to make, but let's talk about the SuperSonics, which we do every week here as part of the Supersonic Minute. We do this. We're doing this a little bit differently this week as we hit the buzzer for the SuperSonics. There's not a lot to report. We try to update everybody every week here on what's going on with the potential expansion, the return of the Sonics. Adam Silver did give another interview to Sports Illustrated in this past week, and he didn't really shed a lot of new light there. He basically said the same thing he said back in September about potentially having an expansion process, but didn't say what exactly was holding up any process right now, but said that they're still very interested in it. In fact, Sports Illustrated listed it as the top issue for Adam Silver going forth. You saw the same thing. Any reaction?
I think it's the same thing. What I admire about Adam Silver is that you're not, well, he said this here, he said this there. He's very meticulous and consistent. And with something as delicate and quite frankly emotional as this, I think that's, you don't want it any other way. You don't want him to saying one thing to not that he does local per se interviews, but you don't want him going to Sports Illustrated and being, well,
right.
You get what I'm getting at. You know what I'm saying? Like tilting one way or the other. So I like that it's even keel, that he has legitimately stayed to the plan for years now. That we could you could follow a timeline, and everything he said, every step he's said has followed to fruition. And sure, maybe there's delays like we're seeing right now as far as finalizing the TV deal with the litigation, right?
Yep.
But everything goes in that sequential order he's laid out, and I admire that. I really do.
Well, and they still seem to be on this track, right, for expansion. They are moving the goalposts, to mix metaphors, but we just saw a lot of people walk out of Climate Pledge Arena with the NBA exhibition game feeling pretty positive. A lot of the people that work for Climate Pledge or work for the Kraken, work for that ownership group, they walked out feeling pretty confident about the show that was just put on a Friday night in Seattle, and everybody that either gathered in advance, and all the former Sonics and local elected officials and business leaders all gathered in advance and afterwards, and feel pretty confident that the NBA will be at a certain point beginning an expansion process.
Yeah, we're waiting, and everybody gets upset when you say be patient, things like that, because you don't want to hear that. We've been waiting 16 years. But I really genuinely think that the real stuff that you have been patient for, that we all have been waiting for, is genuinely pretty darn soon.
Well, you know what they say, waiting is the hardest part.
Yeah, I use that line in my sportscast quite often. I don't sing it like Tom Petty, but
Let's turn to what we usually start with, which is Four Corners. Yes. The same people are back, apparently.
Well, yeah, I just like looking out in this window and I see like a bunch of people hard at work, not even watching us. I'm like, thanks, Kevin. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dan. Yeah. Oh, hey, Hope. Yes.
Yes. Well, what do you like this week? We like to go around the bases, so to speak, touch them all four corners. What we like and don't like in the world of off-field, off-court, off-ice activities.
Oh, so this is like perfect for our show because it's melding what I think is an amazing business idea and sort of a sportsy thing with the Kraken. Okay, I don't know if you noticed, the Kraken got rid of the Davy Jones hat for their best player in the locker room after the game.
Yeah.
And they have brought out a big WWE belt with the Seattle Kraken logo. And I think that is the coolest thing. Like, who doesn't want to have a championship belt on their shoulder or their waist? Like, that's just so cool. The hat was unique. It was the flair, the dramatic of the Kraken, right? But who doesn't want a belt? And the point I'm getting to is, bravo to WWE. What a brilliant marketing strategy, because if you look into it, they make a belt. Like, that isn't specially made for the Kraken. Maybe the players think it is, but you can literally go on the WWE website and buy an amazing looking, it's like a few $100s, but you can buy a championship belt for every franchise, NFL, NHL. I think the one franchise that got taken out was the Jacksonville Jaguars because they're owned by the Khan family, which owns WWE's rival AEW. I don't know if you can still get it. I'm pretty sure they pulled the Jags from that, though. What a brilliant strategy. I've already seen a couple Seahawks ones at Lumen on Sundays already. Bravo. And the Kraken, great job.
Well, and frankly, if you haven't been winning every year with the hat, it's a good time to just get rid of it. You know, maybe the Mariners could think about that with the Trident.
I know you don't like the Trident. But you know what? Like, imagine, Julio or JP hitting a home run, then holding up the belt. That'd be cool, too.
Yeah, that'd be cool, too. You know what else is cool are these new renderings with Memorial Stadium. I want to show, if you're watching on YouTube or on television right now, some of those designs right now. These are new renderings as the folks over at the One Roof Partnership have gone through a design review process now with the City of Seattle and the Seattle School District. You're looking at these were designs that were officially unveiled at a town hall, a forum at Seattle Center. And what's interesting here is, as we go through this, you will see the wall is still intact. The memorial wall is still intact and upgraded, and there's entrances on either side. And I think what is also interesting is you see the existing and proposed, the existing structure in the area around Seattle Center and what's proposed. They are really talking about opening up the campus. This is more than just a Memorial Stadium project. It's also a Seattle Center project. There you see, if you're watching on TV or on YouTube, where the entrances go on either side of the memorial wall. But there's a lot of grass involved. Now, as they have updated this design, there is more of a park-like atmosphere, really opening up that whole area around Memorial Stadium into the rest of the Seattle Center campus. The bummer here, as we told you, we're going to talk a lot about the World Cup and the Club World Cup. This is not going to be done in time for that, and we know that the big get-together, the big viewing area is going to be at Seattle Center. This will not be done in time for that right now. There's talking about groundbreaking in 26 with an opening in 27, so it can still be used for high school graduations. But I think there's going to be people who don't care about the stadium as much as they do about Seattle Center that are going to like this project because of all the grassy area that they're talking about creating and the park-like atmosphere that they're talking about creating.
The real estate is, you can't beat that in Seattle. So to make it as positive as possible, to upgrade everything like that, you wish it was done in time for the World Cup with everybody watching our city, but it's still, my gosh, even if you want to call that 27, 28, what a decade of just rejuvenation in our city, whether it's obviously going back a few years with Climate Pledge and things like that. Really, really exciting to see what else is going to be coming down the line in the future. Yeah,
I think people are, there's some angst to get that project going. It is still moving forward, but it looks like, 26, 27 is when most of the work will be done there as the design review has gone on. You can read more about that, by the way, shameless plug, at KOMOnews.com.
Love it.
Okay, so what don't you like this week?
I have harped on this subject quite a bit. I feel like I get in position to put the elbow down and I'm like, let's go. I've talked about this quite a bit, where my angst about the Cougs and Beavers being left out is strictly geography driven. Because if you look at the product, but it's perception, and the reason that's on my mind right now is because we've seen it play out once again. The Cougs are still not ranked, and for no other reason other than I know you know this as well. When you look at the voting for the AP poll, And they thankfully the AP does this, which I love. You can see full disclosure. You can see every ballot. And what gets me about it is there's some voters who don't even, like, I know them personally, they don't even cover college anymore. They just want to still be a voter. Like, they're still not, like, it'll give their call letters or whatever outlet they work for. I'm like, they're not there anymore. They're not even in the business anymore.
Yeah.
They're just in,
they're sitting on their couch.
But they want to have the importance of a vote.
Right.
You also, on that same token, when you look at some of these ballots, so to speak, and you're looking at where they ranked each team, and you're like, did you even watch? That makes no sense. I mean, listen, of the 100 some odd people, or more than that, but most of the it's 100 some odd voters. Most of them are pretty accurate. Variations are all marginal, but there's a few out there that are just, you didn't watch anything. And that's why I pay almost, I mean, I know being ranked is a badge of honor for programs, but it means so little because when you look at some of the folks that are voting and how little attention they pay to it, and I think that's what the Cougs are falling victim to in this, is that, all they think about when they think of Washington State is, well, they're out of the power conferences, so to speak. Oh, it was just Hawaii. Or, well, if you've watched this team this season, their one loss is to a Boise State team that's the front runner for the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, give me a break. And it's just the whole system. It's my same rant I give about preseason, like all conference teams. You haven't even seen the guy play yet. Like, calm down.
And the coaches poll has been just a problem for years with
same
other
idea.
people voting for the coach that's supposed to be voting in the poll, who hasn't had any chance to watch the other games.
It's the same idea. Like, the coaches certainly know more, but they were busy on their own game. They weren't watching the Cougs in Hawaii or Miami and Louisville, whatever. It's just the whole, I mean, okay, Niko, it's flawed. How do you fix it? I don't know how you fix it, but I just think that some bias is being played out, and it happens to some school every year. It just hits a little closer to home this season.
Yeah, and by the way, hey, I heard complaints from some of my Coug friends about the transmission issues with the game against Hawaii.
Yes.
That's not a KOMO TV problem. That was a transmission problem from elsewhere. So don't take that out on us.
Some people did on Twitter for me. I'm like, I don't. Yeah, because I'm back there hitting the buttons.
I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like this week how it all ended the season for the Sounders against the Timbers. If you were there, as I was, you saw kind of a controversial call that resulted in 2 yellows that led to a red and left the Sounders one player down, or as we like to say in the world of sports, one man down, at least with the Sounders. That really hampered them in that game with the Timbers. Their pace was better than the Timbers. They looked to want it more than the Timbers. It was all about kind of the position in the standings for going into the playoffs. But it comes out in the last few days that the referee who made that call had never reffed a Seattle-Portland game or a playoff game in the MLS before. And we heard from Brian Schmetzer after the game. He was very diplomatic about it, but he thought that the ref did not realize he was handing out a second yellow until he had already lifted the card, and that led to the red. And perhaps if that ref had a chance to do it all over again, they wouldn't. And what we saw was a 1-1 tie. Sounders, though, you look at where the teams ended up falling. They'll end up playing Houston. It always seems like they play Houston and the Dynamo in the playoffs. But I'm not sure, big picture, if they would have finished in third versus fourth, if it would have made a difference. But it did seem like that was a bummer way to end the season. But, there are positive times ahead.
Well, yeah, but you look at it as, okay, does that carry over momentum-wise? Sports is a funny thing. And then, of course, now Portland wins the Cascadia Cup, which just hits me right in the core.
Yeah, there was
there
was all sorts of math involved in all of that, and that was one of the things, because it did certainly seem like the Sounders wanted that one more.
And they've been playing so well lately, so you hate to have something that you hope isn't a stumbling block as you get into the postseason now. And listen, like you said, there's positives moving forward. And how about the 28th, a Monday night football?
Yeah.
Match at Lumen Field, game 1 with Houston. Let's go. I can't wait for that.
And this is a natural transition to talk about what we talked about off the top.
Yeah.
That one of the things they put on the big screen, it was the first time I've seen the Sounders actually say this, is for people to sign up for season tickets for an Alliance membership because you get FIFA Club World Cup ticket access.
Yes.
Now, what that means, we don't know yet.
Sure.
But you'll have a chance to buy tickets, it sounds like, for the 2025 Club World Cup if you are a Sounders season ticket holder or an Alliance member.
I just think it was so cool that, I mean, this whole thing is cool. That's an understatement. But just having Gianni Infantino in Seattle checking out Lumen Field at the brand new Sounders training facility, I mean, it was almost surreal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't follow soccer, that's fine. But understanding that it is the largest sport in the world and understanding he runs it, like you said, president of the world, that's what Brian Schmetzer said.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that person here in Seattle is really cool. I keep seizing that word. That was just I left that day when we were both there thinking like, man, that was awesome. How cool is our city?
And it was interesting too, and we talked about this off the air, that they made this announcement about the FIFA Club World Cup and how many games are going to be in Seattle 6 at 10 o'clock at 10:30 at night, and which is 1:30 on the East Coast. But it's the morning in Europe. And I'm thinking, like, FIFA is really thinking about this from the European perspective on when they want to roll this announcement out as opposed to the local time.
Luckily, you and I were awake. I was working. but yeah, and you know, that was unique. At least we're getting the Sounders group matches here at Lumen. So they get to play in front of the home crowd against, we don't know the specific matchups until likely December. But, you know, we're talking about the who's who of clubs like Real Madrid, you know, Man City, you know, Munich, you know, it's just, oh my gosh.
And it's interesting that they've announced the Sounders will definitely be involved in. We don't know what those other three are, likely, like you said, until December, whether that's going to be a group stage or quarterfinal, semi, or what.
I think when we were there at the facility, and again, it's all confirmed in December, group play for Sounders, and I think there is one further match, potentially, almost like the World Cup. Like we get a Team USA group match here.
Yep.
But then we also get, you know, a round of 16 match in the World Cup, you know, so.
And again, this is all different than the World Cup, which is going to be 1 year later in 2026. But why don't we get to it? Gianni Infantino talking to the media in Renton as part of his visit here to the Seattle area.
For being here, and for me, it's a great pleasure to be here as well. First time in Seattle. I arrived yesterday, visited Lumen Field. Great arena, very special arena, which has a special soul, a special heart inside. I mean, you can feel that when you go in some stadiums, right? They don't have to be the biggest or most special. This one is very special. And it was empty, so I cannot imagine how it will be when it will be full. And it will be full not just for what you call football, but also for what we call football, which is what you call soccer. It will be full for soccer games next summer, definitely. Well, certainly as well this year for the playoffs and what have you. But next summer for the FIFA Club World Cup, 6 games will take place in Seattle. The 32 best clubs in the world will participate, including the Seattle Sounders. And the 3 games of the Seattle Sounders in the group stage will be played as well in Lumen Field. So 3 home games. We want to have 69,000 fans cheering for their clubs, beating. I heard there is a discussion about the world record in making noise in a stadium or something like that. So we will get it back to Seattle. That's the objective. And then, of course, the year after, the World Cup as well, 6 games, including the second match of the U.S. national team. So we are ready, to welcome. I met today the governor, the mayors, ready to welcome the world to Washington, to Seattle, to this whole area, because that's what will happen. We'll have hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, in total for the World Cup, between 5 and 10 million fans will travel to the US. For the Club World Cup, it will be a little bit less, but very similar numbers as well, of fans who want to come and enjoy the game. And this will be, for me, part of the legacy we want to leave as well. We are not just here to organize tournaments and events, but we are here to grow the game, to make it become number one, not just around the world, but also in this country, for men's football, for women's football, We were discussing about the rain as well, which is a great team. We have now the under-17 World Cup taking place in not far from here in Dominican Republic, where the U.S. under-17 team is playing, including a player from Seattle. So a lot of discussions and a lot of good vibes.
From what you saw here in this city, what's your level of confidence that Seattle can host two major global events like this?
I'm extremely confident. I mean, the commitment I've witnessed here from the authorities, from the people is really. I mean, I don't want to say unique because there are 16 host cities for the World Cup and 11 for the Club World Cup, but it's really very special. And I will definitely use and cite and mention Seattle as an example as well to the other host cities of what can be done, not just during the events, but also in the leading up and after the events.
With what you
Johnny, do you think the specialness of the city, the uniqueness of Emerald City, and the commitment of the Puyallup tribe, the nation, of welcoming you, how committed are you to working with them and keeping the sustainability in their aspect of welcoming FIFA and the world and in the country here to see this?
Well, this is beautiful. Thanks for that. Thanks for the question. We had just a great discussion, a great meeting, and for me, to be able to showcase the origins of the people of the tribe, including them and including football in what they do is unique. We need always to remember where we are coming from, the origins. We need to remember the diversity of the game and having this interaction and the events we can organize around the Club World Cup and the World Cup with them, and the meeting we had today was really special from a human perspective as well. Sorry, is and will be unique.
We'll
take one more. Niko, is that you?
With what you have seen at the stadium and the city, considering the magnitude of a Club World Cup and a World Cup, what are some of the changes or improvements that you feel like they're needed, whether it's press box or in general, to host an event of this magnitude?
Well, there are some, small details that we are working on, of course, with the host city committee. But the most important element is, to make the hundreds of thousands of fans which will be coming feel welcome and feel home. They must feel welcome in the entire city. And the great thing.
What do you think, Chris? I like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a nice dry run for the city of Seattle with the World Cup. There's been a lot of focus on that and what that's going to mean for the city. So I think this is going to be a nice dry run for the city of Seattle.
Great question, by the way.
I was happy to get one question in there.
Yeah, it was very limited. He only had time for 3, as we saw there. But you know what? Like he said, they believe in Seattle. They believe in our ability to host these big events like we've seen with the All-Star Game and other things. We're ready, and I can't wait for it.
And I can't wait for week 22 of Inside the Arena.
Davis Lee, take us there, man.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.